Hello, sisters. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast, weaving powerful, soulful practices into functional medicine. Step into this beautiful space of devotion and explore everything from nurturing foods, rituals, sexuality, and awakening your innate sensuality. It is time to own your radiance. This is the Sacred Medicine Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Margaret Romero, and today's guest is Amber Chalus. I love this interview because we share many similar rituals. I mean, everything from creating, sacred space wherever we go. We also dive a little bit into her daily rituals, which are pretty cool, and how to connect with your inner knowing. And also how to beautifully step into that divine feminine space. So I hope you enjoy this interview. And on to the show. I have Amber Chalus on the line today. She is the founder and creator of the Liberated Woman, a free-spirited explorer, coach, yoga teacher, and podcast host. Her mission: to empower women to escape the ordinary, discover their bliss, and find freedom within. She believes that every woman deserves to feel connected to her body, radiate with confidence, and live the life of her dreams. Her current home is in the wild heart of Canada with her charming British husband and adorable pup, Indiana.
Yeah.
So welcome, Amber. So excited to connect with you today.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you've invited me, Margaret. This is going to be an incredible conversation. And hello to everyone who's listening, wherever you are.
So tell me, a lot of my interviews are going to be about, I try to blend together sacredness along with medicine. And I'm always curious about women who, such as yourself, what your rituals are and sort of how you conduct maybe your morning ritual, or do you have an evening ritual or even a sensual ritual of any kind?
Mm-hmm. I only, let's just put it this way. Rituals is not something that I've done since I was really young, and I've kind of like grown into my rituals. And ever since I love it. I love that I can set the intention for my day in the morning and that I can really center down in the evening. And if you're sensitive to energy in any way, you know that when you're out in the world, it's kind of like chaotic, right? Mm-hmm. People are like dumping their stuff on you all the time. So if I don't have my rituals, my practices, I can get really frazzled. So the first thing is, oh yeah, absolutely. And the way I actually learned this was I didn't find a teacher. Nobody was like, this is important. But when I used to travel all of the time, I would be sleeping in places that were, a little bit uncomfortable. We backpacked, my husband and I, for a lot of years. And you'd be staying in a hotel room with like rats in the walls or just like really uncomfortable spaces. But for some reason, I was able to kind of like create this cocoon around myself. And that's what I think of these rituals as being. I would have my essential oil, and I would have my face mask to cover my eyes and my earplugs. I would have certain music that I would play when it was time for bed or to rest. And all of those things combined, using my senses, I could basically, it wouldn't matter where I was. I took home with me wherever I went. And yeah, to me, that is what it's all about. And now I still do those things at home. I play a certain type of music when I'm going to sleep, a certain kind of essential oil. I massage my legs. I always like have a bath or a shower before bed. I cleanse myself of everything from the day. And it's become such a habit at this point that I can take it anywhere I go and feel the same way when I close my eyes, when my head hits the pillow, than, if I was to, most people just kind of let everything happen at them. And I like to be intentional with my time.
I love that. I love that. You know, I
Mhm.
do the same thing. I'm not sure if you do this when I get on a plane because I know I'm going to be on there for a few hours. I bring the essential oils, the
Mhm.
warm socks, whatever it is that
Yes.
I need to just feel cozy on the flight and if I'm going to be sleeping. So everything, you know, the books, the journals, the music.
Crystals and I know.
I
It's
have
like
to
your little
travel with it
kit of
all.
it. Yes. Oh, it's kind of grown over the years. I didn't used to have like a crystal or a certain necklace, or I didn't have um well, I always carry my journal, but now, I have audiobooks and podcasts that I can listen to. And all of those things combined, it's creating a sacred space around you, a container for you to relax and be at peace, because the world is going to pull you in so many different directions. You're going to come across people that stress you out, and that's not going to change. You can't change the outside world, but what you can do is create those rituals, those spaces where you do feel at home.
Yes, definitely. I'm curious, what kind of oils do you use? And for what different purposes?
Um, I've I'm such a sensual person. I like to really be like every single sense involved in my practices.
Mm,
So lavender, always my favorite when I'm going to bed. I put it on the bottoms of my feet. I will rub it in my hands and then I'll inhale it deeply so
mm,
that it really goes into my system. I enjoy peppermint when I have to speak or I have to teach in front of a class when I'm teaching women or I'm teaching yoga. It's something that clears my throat and it clears my senses. Obviously, my throat chakra opens up. It's one of those things that I just feel fresh when I use it. And now there's so many amazing companies out there that you can get blends, right? There's Sage and
yeah.
there's Terra and there's Young Living. You can really experiment with everything. Right now, my favorite though is eucalyptus. I'm putting a couple drops in the bathtub before I get into the shower. And
Mm.
when the room steams up, that scent just radiates throughout the room and it's very soothing.
Oh, that sounds nice. I've never done it in the shower. Hmm.
Well, I usually save it for the bath, but I was getting so busy in the last few weeks that I thought, okay, if I can just add that little tiny ritual that represents something for me, then I can kind of return to my center.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And so I saw on Instagram, because I follow you on Instagram, that you were burning sage one day. And I think
Oh,
your
yeah.
dog was in the background, kind of wondering what
Oh,
you were
Indiana
doing.
Jones. Yes.
Do you, was there something that you were saging away, or is it just the typical, middle of the week saging the house kind of thing? Or,
Well, I can always feel when I need it. There's just a very when I come home after being gone for a while or a few hours, if I come home after a while, there's no life in the house, right? Well, my dog's life, but when you're not in there infusing your energy, it kind of becomes stale. So I use the sage to clear the space so that I can bring my own energy into it. It's like a big eraser board. You just clear all of the energy that's in there, the stale energy, and then you can start bringing your own energy into the space. I love that. And I open the windows as well. I love fresh air coming in the windows.
you know, I'm not sure if you sense this too, but yes, the air is stale, and then after burning, there's such a lightness. Do
Hmm.
you get that? I don't know.
Oh,
For
I
me,
absolutely do.
it
And
feels
I will come
lighter.
into my house and I think before I do it, it feels so heavy and stale and uncomfortable. And nobody's really been in there. And it's not that anyone's had an argument or something really dramatic has happened. My house is a renovation. So it has many owners before us. And that would have had an impact on it heavily. And I actually heard from a teacher once, and this was amazing. Her name, her company's called Rogue Wood, and she teaches a lot about saging and crystals. And she said, even when people think something about you, that because they don't know where you are, that thought, that intention, that energy will be placed on your house.
You're
So,
kidding.
yeah. So if you're at the grocery store and somebody thinks, like, even if it's a happy thought, or they think, oh, I'm really annoyed with that person, like your house is the placeholder for your energy. So when you come back, that energy has been, is now resting
Oh,
there. So clearing it isn't just clearing what's in there, but what, the people walking past your house, people thinking about you, people, all that kind of stuff is
Interesting.
carried. I know. When I heard that, I was like, I need to go and clear everybody I know, their houses, their
Oh,
spaces, because this is what people comment on me a lot. I'm really good at creating a space that feels calm and relaxing. And I don't think that this is something that only I can do or anything like only you can do. Anyone can do it. It's just most people aren't aware that they have this, it's kind of magic that you can actually clear out a space and feel better.
I didn't. So, you always hear of like evil eye and things like
Hmm.
that. When I hear of those things, I always think, well, it's affecting you, your body, your person. When if someone's like jealous or having
Yeah.
not a good thought about you or something like that, and they're in your presence. But I didn't really realize that energy sort of carries into your home. Which, yes, now
Mhm.
I could see what you're saying. What
Oh,
about
yeah.
cutting cords? Do you do that sort of at all?
Well, I've not done it recently, and I have practiced it before. Um, when I meditate, I like to become very, very clear and centered in myself and connected to like, greater being, universe.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's nature. It's always been nature.
Mm,
I go out into nature and
yes.
I emotionally, energetically, physically separate myself from everybody else's energies because I know that people mean well, but when you're around other people or you have those relationships that just keep on driving you crazy, you need to be able to separate yourself. So whether you're doing a cord cutting or you're actually separating yourself physically from that space, it's so important for your well-being because we carry the energy of every conversation we have, everything that we put into our body, everywhere that we go,
Mm-hmm.
everything is carried on our bodies and in our bodies. And when you don't understand that, you just think, oh, it's fine, I'm not going to worry about it. But then it's there. It's always there. So really being intentional with separating yourself and being okay. I am not that experience. I am not that person's opinion. I am what I am, and what I am is, and that's what you've got to decide for yourself.
It's interesting because tell me if this has happened to you. So, in my practice in the city, I will notice, and this happens to me more often than not, if I start to feel really tired, if the person is starting to drain my energy,
Oh yeah.
I feel like I could fall asleep during, I
Mhm.
mean, that tired, and I have to after that I have to cut cords after I see, a patient of mine, because it can affect it. Energy is out there, people. Like
Yeah.
it's either giving to you or it's sucking energy from you. And so I
Hmm.
feel sometimes that energy exchange is a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And I haven't really figured out yet what to do when I start to feel like, oh, I'm totally being drained right now.
I
Do you have any tips on that?
Well, I actually, it's so funny that you say that. And in in my bedroom on the wall, I have this prayer. It's a little like saying that you repeat to yourself before you go into any situation, and it
Mm,
protects you from other people's energy before you go in there. So if I'm going to spend the day teaching or coaching or doing something that's super energetically involved, it
yes.
basically creates a shield around you so that it protects your energy from other people's.
Oh,
So I love it. I'd love to share it with you guys.
yes. Send that
Now,
to me and I can put it
I
in the
will
show
send it
notes.
to you.
Or is it long
Yes.
or short or?
It's short, but I have to just go grab it quickly.
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay? Okay.
Okay. Just give Amber a couple of seconds to get this really cool prayer. I'm excited.
All right. So
Okay.
this is an energy shield, and it's to protect your energetic self and your physical self from other people's energy, especially if you're going to be around a lot of people who, and when you were describing you working with people and getting tired, people get used to relying on your energy when you're the type of person that actually takes care of yourself, right?
Yes.
When you are trying to operate from a high vibe, a high energy, really like full place, like that full cup so that you
Yes.
can feed other people,
Right.
they will then start to rely on that energy source. And that's another reason why, yes, it feels wonderful to be helpful, but there is those boundaries that you have to put in place, knowing that they have to become their own energy source. You're a guide, but you're not the one that has to feed them. There's a certain point in everyone's life, they become an adult and they need to do those things for themselves.
True.
So
True.
this is going to be something that you could say before you're going to deal with somebody or you're going to go to work and you know that there's going to be a lot of energy going around.
Okay.
Would you like me to say it out for you,
I would
Margaret?
love it. Yes.
Lovely. All right, everyone. Sit comfortably. If you'd like, you can just do this with us right now. We're going to close our eyes, take a deep breath in and out. Archangel Michael, please decord my front and back with a sword and surround me in white light. Angels, please create a shield around my body and my aura, protecting me from others' energy and protecting my energy from penetrating others. I ask that this shield be impenetrable and impermeable and last for the duration of 10 hours. I ask that it be coated in pink and golden light to reflect compassion and love. Thank you.
I love that. I'm going to say that every day. I mean, even when you're out in the supermarket, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this should be part of my morning ritual when I pray. Because I do believe in angels. I'm all over that.
Yes, I do too. And ever since I was young, I've been a really big fan of the idea of goddesses and knowing that I'm protected and that I'm seen and I'm heard. And this is kind of taking responsibility in your own hands, but also having those helping hands to guide you and to help support you.
Yes. So how else do you do any other angel work at all?
You know what? It's mostly goddesses and nature for me. I have a deck of, this is going to be wild. Okay, Margaret, seriously. I don't even tell people a lot. But when I was probably 15, I got my first set of oracle cards.
Okay.
Right? These oracle cards, the very first set I ever purchased that I own, that I've used since I was 15. So over 10 years, 15 years.
Okay.
Okay. Medicine cards. Medicine cards. And they're based on like North American traditional mythology.
Oh.
And it's all animals and their stories and their spirits. And when you pull a card, it's related to that animal and their spirit and their story. And they are the guides within this card deck. And I have used that deck for years on myself and other people. And it's been really an anchor for me because even when I see an animal that comes from that deck, I know that is a message, that is that, that guide coming to me. You see a raven, you see a rabbit, you see a feather from a bird. All of those things are messages. They are being brought to you.
Yeah.
And that was the pinnacle. That was the very beginning of me creating an altar, of me collecting things from nature, stones and images. That was the beginning, and everything else has blossomed from that place.
Do you now, the spirit animals, is that something that you, like if some animal crosses your path, are you like, oh my God, that's a sign?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, me too.
All the time.
Because I get it all the time too. I get
well,
the
and
messages.
It's what you're most receptive to. I know some people it just doesn't matter to them, but for me it means so much because I can just for some reason ravens. Whenever I see ravens, always I know that they're here to, and obviously they're common to a certain degree, but the thing is, when one is just looking at you from across the park and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I understand what's going on here. All of those, it's just like, I don't know, what animals do you see?
Well, I live in a fairly sort of the country of
Mhm.
part of Connecticut. And so the backdrop of where I live is just woods.
Mm,
And I see animals all the time. And there's chipmunks and rabbits in my backyard.
mhm.
And I see deer occasionally. And so the usual ones, I think, okay, well, I see them every day, not necessarily a sign. But when I was driving the other day, a coyote came out and was like right in the middle of the street and was looking
Oh,
at
yeah.
me. I'm like, I got to look that up.
Yes. And what did you discover?
And so it's interesting. I don't know if you do this, and I'm wondering if people are like, okay, we're not listening to this podcast anymore because they're talking about something that's not really medicine based. But anyway, uh,
Or there's somebody who's been like, I've always thought this. How come nobody has told this to me? That's how I felt when I first went to my first yoga teacher training and they told me about energies and the yin and the yang of the universe and that, polar opposites and everything had
mhm.
to have, contrast. I was like, are you? And so you are out there. I know she's out there.
Yes, definitely. People hopefully are really interested in this. But listen, I think everyone should be there. Animals come around to give us
Mm.
signs,
They're so
and
wise and they're so connected.
they
When we are
are.
right now in modern society, we are obsessed with technology. Yes, it can be amazing and beneficial, but we eat foods from packages, we work from computers, we connect to each other through our cell phones, we watch TV to get, entertainment. Our homes are enclosed, our cities are concrete. And that's all well and good if you do take that time to connect with nature and the way that the cycles move through the seasons and the way that the animals relate to the universe. That is important because the truth is, Margaret, and you know this, we are animals.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I, for years, have been getting signs from animals, and I really take them literally. And I think about what thought was I thinking when this animal just came into my presence.
Mm.
And so it really, I mean, and sometimes it's like there was a snake, a garter snake on my path a couple weeks ago. And I've never seen a snake. I've lived here for a few years now. Never seen a snake here. And it was right near my doorway. I mean, come on. So
Of
transformation. I mean,
course, of
things were
course.
just coming
Oh,
and I
yeah.
knew that. And
Removing layers.
exactly. So
Mm.
I'm so happy to hear that we're
Yeah, you're not the
like-minded
only
in that
one.
way. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oracle
Oh,
cards.
yes. And I think some people feel, I've heard from some people, oh, well, that's just a crutch and true spirituality doesn't need all of those things. But life is experiences. It adds to the richness of it, right? If your ritual is to pull an oracle card in the morning and set your intention for the day or ask a question and pull that card right before I go to bed, I will ask a question to my goddess deck. And whatever comes up, I have something to anchor. And anchor is a really important word here because I always tell clients whatever's going on in your life, you need the anchors to hold you to what matters most, to your values, to that sense of who you are. So if it's baking, I mean, I've heard people say, like, when I bake, I feel totally at home. I feel so comfortable. I feel at peace. That might be
Mm-hmm.
your thing. It could be oracle cards. It could be going for a walk. Maybe you love golfing. I'm not going to judge you for what your rituals are to connect to something, but what you need to do is have them.
Oh, yeah. I think that a lot of people sort of run on just from their head all the time.
Mm.
And they're not really dropping down into their body and really feeling, is that a yes or is that a no for me? How does that feel in my body when they need to make a decision about anything? And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Dropping down.
yeah. How do you,
Especially into your hips, right? Especially
oh,
into your
yeah.
hips. As women, we might drop into our heart a little bit, like from our head and be like, okay, I can see this from love. But to actually get into our hips and the deepest part of our wisdom, it's, the moon cycles and the water and what makes us feminine. We're
Mm,
very cut off from it. We live in a masculine world that treats us like we're more valuable when we think and reason and logic our way to an answer. But the truth is that we have wisdom that's much greater than that, that lives within our bodies. And until you tap into that, you're going to feel super, super detached from that wisdom.
Exactly. So are there any special things that you do to connect to your body, sort of dropping down?
Movement, and really movement into the hips. I've done yoga for a number of years now, and I teach yoga. But even when you're practicing yoga, this is what I find. It was developed originally for the male body type, actually for boys. So it's very linear, even the movement forward and back sun salutations. So when it comes to like connecting to my wisdom, to my body, it's all about dancing. It's about moving your hips in big circles. It's about moving to music. It's about like really just getting grounded down into your hips and opening that part of your body. Here's a really simple practice, honestly. Margaret, when a woman walks today, there is a sense that we need to walk with our hips completely in line, standing straight up and down. And we kind of like, instead of swaying our hips the way a woman normally would, because that is the way our bone structures are created, we kind of like keep our hips under because we don't want to be perceived as being too sexual or too sensual. But a woman's body, it does sway. Our body moves differently from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to allow yourself to move in those sensual, more womanly ways, it's like grounding back down. I'm not my head. I'm not my thoughts. I am this body, and it has the right to move however it feels good. It feels right.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to get a little picture into how are you? What kind of music? Is it slow? Is it like fast, like Beyonce, or is it like get down and dirty kind of dancing?
Okay, so this is, I've never found anyone who loves this music as much as I do, so I'm not going to say this is what you need to tune into, but it's usually some kind of mantra, chill out, chill step, electronic kind of blend. And that literally is the one thing that when I put my headphones in, it kind of like ignites my spirit, my soul. And everyone has that music that just kind of like lights you up. And I can listen, even if it's just for 5 minutes, I will put a song on, this chill step kind of, it'll be a mix of tribal, it'll be a mix of classical, and it just has that rhythm and not always a lot of words. But when it comes on, I can feel my body and I can actually move into my body. And it's like I literally drop from my brain down into my hips, and then from my hips into my feet, and from my feet into the earth. And even at the beginning of my yoga classes, if I have the women sit down, we do big hip circles and we move our rib cage around and around, and we allow our bodies to get really grounded into the floor below us. Because to me, I believe that there's nothing you can really do if you're not connected to the earth. The strength it takes to reach up for your goals or to go lead from your heart, you have to have that foundation first. So being connected to the earth, actually standing on soil or sitting on the ground or laying on the ground, it connects you to that like lower center of gravity rather than sticking inside your brain, which is where the wheels keep turning and you never get anywhere.
I would love to hear that the music that you're
I'll have to send you my playlist. It's on SoundCloud. It's all free to listen to, and I really is amazing for me to get into that zone. I've heard some people, you can listen to some soft, gentle music, and that's how I relax in the evening. But to me, there's something almost like, it's like you said before, when you're like, is it really like down and dirty kind of music? The feminine is that moon energy, that dark energy. It's kind of like the hidden parts of ourselves. So it's not about being pretty and perfect. And like, I used to do ballet, for example. When I was a young girl, I did ballet for a lot of years, and it was very structural. And as pretty and feminine as it looks, it's very almost masculine because everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be in alignment. Everything has to be the way they tell you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, that's perfect. But that dancing, that having to be the next person, that destroyed my relationship with my body because I thought I was never going to be good enough. I was never going to have that body type. But when I could listen to music that was kind of a little bit off, that's a little bit different, that's just kind of like lights up this other part of me, or turning down the lights and lighting some candles and staying up late and literally dancing out underneath the stars in the dark. My dog always thinks I'm insane, but he does join me for it. I do love him. But listening to that music with my headphones in and just being connected to the earth. I know I sound like an absolute wild woman. However,
No,
think
I
about it for a
love it.
second. You go to school when you're young, they put you into a fitness class or a gym class. They say this is how you have to do it, and it's very regimented.
Yes.
We live like zombies. We live like robots, and it's time to return back to that more um, intuitive, instinctual part of ourselves.
Yes. Now, I really love that you have dance as part of your. Is it daily for you, or is it only when you feel like you need it, or how often?
I would say it's not daily because and I wish I could say that it was every single day. And I tell people all the time, like you say, every morning you should do the exact same thing to create your ritual. And I'm getting better at that. But it really moves in tune with my cycle, with the
Mm,
months. It
yeah.
depends on where I am in the month. Like there's times when I'm ready to go out there and rock the world, and I'm like, I don't actually wear shoulder pads, but if you imagine like oh yes, I'm ready to rock it. And then there's these other times when I just get super quiet and introspective. And the way that modern society likes to paint women, when it's like when you're feeling down and quiet and still and you want to get very like introspective, it's like, oh, there's something wrong with you. But for me, that's the time when I'm like, okay, like I need to turn inward. There's something within me that needs to come out. It's not about learning from the outside world or being told how to live.
Mm-hmm. So true. So are you also, do you gauge that also based on your menstrual cycles or
Mhm.
I was
Yes,
going to say moon cycles. It's sort of the same
absolutely.
thing.
Moon cycles. I love it. I'm so in sync with right now, and I have been for the last few years in sync with the full moon.
Yes.
And that only happened. I mean, I would never say that I know the answer to everybody in their life, but when I went off of hormonal birth control, that changed everything for me because that was when I could actually tune into what my body was doing rather than it's that same thing. Originally, we're forced to be something we're not, i.e., here's the drugs to make you something, or what my natural rhythms are. And when I was able to drop into those natural rhythms, then I could be more myself and I could accept myself for that.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel more introspective then around your period or your moon time?
Mm, I would say not a week before, but more than that. Because the week before, I'm kind of like, I don't know what's going on. So it's like halfway in between.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like 2 weeks before. And during my cycle, I kind of shut down more. And I want a little bit of that wisdom. I want a little bit of that spark within me to get that movement in. So it is, yeah, it's probably halfway in between.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
interesting because um I've been going to the gym on a pretty regular basis, sometimes up to 6 days a week, a little bit too much. And now that it's starting to really cool down and it's fall and it's getting like colder outside, I'm really not into it.
Hmm.
And I decided to switch my membership from the gym, put it on hold. You can put it on hold for a few months and
Hmm.
just there's a local yoga studio that I
Yeah.
just love that just feels so much more nourishing for me. And
Yeah.
they also
Oh,
have
that's
some
the word.
hot
Nourishing.
yoga. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And they'll have like candlelit hot yoga on like Friday nights. And
Oh, see, I would do that in a moment. Seriously.
doesn't that sound divine?
It is divine, and don't let what I said about yoga put you off. Yoga is amazing. It is really connected to your body and how you're feeling.
Yes.
I always call the yoga that I teach or the yoga that I enjoy self-honoring yoga. When you can go into a class and the teacher is kind of providing the space for you to explore what feels good for you,
Mm-hmm.
that to me, that's heaven. That's what you want. You want to be able to go into a place where here's an example. I once knew a friend who went to a gym and she got a personal trainer, and the personal trainer was a male, and the first day he stood her in front of the mirror and he proceeded to walk around her body, pointing out her flaws.
Oh,
Yeah, showing her what he felt was unacceptable and that needed to be fixed.
oh, he should be fired.
Well, he owns the gym.
Oh, he owns it.
Oh, of course he does. Um, yeah, that's the kind of world that most women are going into when they say, okay, I want to move my body. They're moving into a space of judgment. They're moving to a space of you need to meet a certain expectation. And if you can find that place, whether it's through yoga or through dance or through whatever it is, where you can just explore, like, what does feel good for my body? What is my body saying right now? I tell my yoga students when they lay on the mat, I say, this is not the body you had last week. And it is not the body you're going to have next week. It's not the body you had 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to have this body in 10 years. It is unique to this moment. So honor where it is right now, not where it was yesterday.
Right. So true. Yeah. And the thought of going to the gym,
Mm-hmm.
with its fluorescent lights and the steel and the cold and the clanging and the grunting. And I'm like, get me out
And
of here.
the glaring. I hear you.
I can't.
No. There's a place for it for sure. And a lot of women, I think they find their start there. They're like, okay, this works really well. I'm getting out of my head and into my body to a certain degree. But then there's this line that you cross and you're like, hey, there's something more. Like, I want to actually invite my spirit to play here. I want my energy to play. I want to be around people who understand this kind of thing, rather than people who are just kind of like posting on Instagram their latest reps, right?
Right. And I'm not saying that the gym is bad, by all means. No, I mean, I was at the gym. I mean, I'm a member. I have a gym membership. But right now, for me, my body is just really craving
other direction. You need to have both. Yeah.
Yes.
It's the yin and the yang. And for most people, they have so much of that yang energy, which is that, like the gym. If you have too much yin, which is what I usually end up happening, because I'm very earth element. You probably know about Ayurveda and the doshas, Margaret.
A little bit, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in Ayurveda, which is the yogic science of life, there are 3 doshas, and one dosha is earth and water. One is fire and water, and one is air and space. And I just happened to be born a kapha, which is the earth and water energy. So I already start very grounded, very like down in my hips, very slow moving. Mm-hmm. That's my constitution. So I need that louder, pumpy music. I need something to really excite my senses to get me going and balance me. But if you already have that, which a lot of people do today, they already have the air element. They're moving quickly. They think quickly. They have all these ideas. They run, they work out. Those people, they love it and it accentuates what they already are. But if you start getting imbalanced, you just have to bring that earth element back into play. You just need to do those more earthy practices and eat those more earthy foods to draw yourself back to that center. And it's just a dance between, every part of your body.
Definitely. By the way, what's your sign?
I am an Aries.
Okay. Do you know what your moon and your rising are?
I don't have them here. No, I have them written down in my astrology folder.
Okay.
But I do have that fire, and it probably works to my advantage being earth and water and then having this more fiery side. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I used to live in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 4 years or so. And when I moved there, because it's really woo-woo there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, within a few weeks, I started meeting new people. I moved there without really knowing anybody. They said, you cannot live in Santa Fe and not know what your rising and your moon sign are. So I've known it for a long time because I used to live there. But anyway.
I have heard that they're more important to know those ones. And Well, where I live is the exact opposite of that type of place. We have more churches than we have gas stations, and we have one set of lights. So any information that I get, it's kind of like I soak it all up, and it just intrigues me so much.
Mm. I'm curious because I read something. You were on a podcast
Mm.
recently, and I heard your interview. It was with Is it Badass and Bear podcast?
Yes,
Yes.
Andrea and Katie, my girls.
Yeah. And they were describing where you lived, and it
Mhm.
sounded really remote. Is that true?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I it's remote. It's as far north as anybody lives in this part of the country. I mean, you can live up in Alaska and you can live in northern Canada, but when you start moving into those places, you have to fly, you have to you have to have all your food and everything shipped in. So if you were to drive from California like north up the center of the country and just
Okay.
keep on going, eventually you'd come to where I live, which is north of North Dakota in Saskatchewan and northeast within this province. And on the very edge, this is where like homesteads, my family would have homesteaded. It's wilderness, and you can step places no one's ever stepped. This is not somewhere that's been highly populated. People don't come through here a lot. It's not a high traffic area. It's a quiet, small community. And that's the funniest thing is as much as I've tried to leave many times and I've traveled the world, I always know that I'm a messenger. I'm a curator of information. I'm the person who explores the world, finds out the information, and brings it back to the women who don't have that ability to
Mm-hmm.
leave. And it's always come back as my purpose. As much as I want to be the one who lives in a really hip town where everyone's got, they know their rising sign and they drink the cool juice. And I love that idea. I love being able to connect to that community. But then if I was there, I couldn't be of service to the people who don't have it. And that's why the podcast is so important to me, because for the women and even the men who live somewhere isolated that don't understand, that don't get to understand this stuff because no one's there to teach them, I'm here to provide the information.
Mm. Oh, I love that. I love
Mm.
that. And so how many people live in your town?
The town that I grew up in, which is right next to this one, is 500, and this one is 5,000. And
Okay.
if I want to fly, I have to drive 3 hours, but that's just like a small airport. We have to get to Toronto in order to actually fly anywhere interesting.
So how did you meet your man?
Well, when I graduated from high school, I did not want to go to university. I just chose not to. So I moved to London, England. And from London, I moved to Scotland and I spent 2 years in Scotland, and he was working at the same company as me. And this is true. I ended up working in an outdoor pursuits company. I couldn't stand being in London around, that energy. It was too intense for me. So
Mm.
I'd go from the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan to the middle of nowhere in Scotland to teach children and teens how to, build their confidence and mountain climb and mountain bike and everything to do with
Oh,
nature.
neat.
That's where I ended up working. And then he was working there as well.
Okay. Okay. So you talked a little bit about that. You mentioned that you were sort of more of a sensual type of person, and I would love for you to, tell us a little bit about if you have any sensual rituals or
Mm.
any kind of practices that you do with or without your man.
Oh, without it. Oh, see, this is so interesting because I I take this so I hold it close to my heart because I know a lot of women, they're so in their heads, and my job is to just bring them to their heart and then eventually down into their hips, but they're not ready for, that next level.
Mm-hmm.
But ever since I was a teenager, I've been very connected and I've been very protective of my sensuality, my sexuality. I remember when I moved to the UK and it was kind of like, oh, you're meant to be a girl, which means you're meant to just give your sexuality away. You're supposed to just kind of whatever. And I once read somewhere that you carry the sexual energy of the person that you are with for 7 years. So if you have sex with somebody, you're going to carry their energy for 7 years
Oh, I didn't know it
within
was
your
that long.
body.
I didn't know it was that
Yes.
long.
Well, this is what I've learned,
Okay.
and it would make sense because I mean they're inside of you and they're kind of like giving their energy to you in such a like intimate way. So it's been a while since I've been with anyone besides my husband, but for me, I've always been like super in tune to what feels good and what feels sensual. And I don't always have to be with my husband. I literally close the doors. I go into my bedroom. I play my favorite, it'll be like the mid-tone music, and I will literally just explore my body and let her decide what she wants.
Mm.
And it's kind of like that animal thing back to the start. When I'm in my head, she's in charge and she tells me what to do, when to do it. And if you do that for too long, which is what, it goes in tune with the cycles. The longer I do that, the less I think properly, the less I'm connected to my body. But if I take this time to go into a quiet space and to just massage my body, to let her enjoy pleasure, which is what most women do not let themselves have. We're not
I know.
we're not trained to receive. And here's the really wild thing about it for me. And I this could be completely wild, but let's be honest with ourselves. If you're not willing to receive pleasure from yourself or the one that's closest to you, that symbol of like receiving, that is a way bigger problem. It's about receiving abundance. It's about receiving nourishment. It's about receiving even as simple as your breath. Allowing your body to enjoy full, deep breaths deep into your body, all the way down to your womb, and then releasing out what doesn't need to be there. That is something that we take for granted and we don't take time to do. But just imagine if every week you just took some time to, and literally start simple, ladies. You can lay on the bed, put your hand on your heart, put one hand on your belly, and start breathing long, deep breaths so that it floods your brain and your bloodstream with oxygen. That's just the first step. You just need to get to the place where you're willing to receive a full breath, and then you can move to the place where you're receiving, massages, and you're receiving that enjoyment and pleasure. Right now, you're probably not letting yourself have any of it. And I want you to get out of that punishment state and into the state of, I do deserve to receive pleasure, and it makes me a better person. It's not going to take away from anyone else.
Right. I think so many women are, I work with a lot of very successful, high-powered women in Manhattan, and they are just go, 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 5 a.m. at Soul Cycle. Even though they're exhausted, they force their bodies. And then they come to me with depleted adrenals and, zero libido. Yeah. This is so common. It's so common. And you're right. I mean, I think that we're so conditioned to just give. No. I don't need a massage. I don't need whatever, manicure, pedicure, whatever it is. I don't have time. But it's such a priority to just.
It's symbolic. It's so symbolic. If you keep giving and you aren't willing to receive, I mean, it's an uneven cycle. You cannot keep giving if you don't receive, right? And taking a massage, which is the funniest thing about, for example, taking the time to do that, we still lay there and think, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be somewhere else. Like I could be finishing that one thing on my list, and also I have to talk to that one person, and they need that thing from me, and that cycle of like, even in the moments when you're meant to be receiving, when you're making love to someone and you are concentrating on, okay, have I paid those bills? That is, you're half present, and we all know that presence is important, but for some reason we're more willing to be present in the places that we're masculine rather than when we are being feminine and receptive and enjoying, because we don't feel like we deserve it, that we don't feel we're worthy of it, that we must earn that right. And to me, I don't believe that you need to earn your right to pleasure or enjoyment or happiness.
Absolutely
or bliss
not.
Or love. This is the best way to put it, Margaret, and it was from a documentary that I watched, and there was a lady speaking, and she said, for some reason, when a little boy is born, we just assume that he is like, he gets to have anything that he wants in life, right? But when a little girl is born, she will spend her life trying to earn back the right to be on the planet. Like, oh, your place here is kind of like, it's conditional. You need to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way, you have to accomplish certain things, and then you will be worthy of this life. And we need to shift that. I mean, it's all
Big
over the
time.
planet, and it's really bad in some places, but even in your own life, you have to think, where am I making my happiness, my pleasure conditional on the things I accomplish?
Right.
Mm.
I mean, it is one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because I see too many women completely being run by their masculine energy all
Yeah.
day and all night. And when they get home, and it's like they get home and they're still ruling the house. They're
Oh,
like they're ruling the office. And then you've got like, it's almost like, you know,
yeah.
she comes home. It's like, now two penises are home. I mean,
Oh my, I'm so
you
glad
know,
you said that, Margaret, because that I totally agree with you. We come home and we've had to be so masculine for so long that we don't even know how to turn it off. And then you're wondering why your relationship with your partner is not the way that you want it to be.
right.
Well, you're trying to be him. And
Exactly.
he either has to become stronger and like way more aggressive in order to balance, or he's just going to become super submissive.
Oh,
And I'm not saying that men can't be in that place and that you can't have a different dynamic in it. But if you want to be that receptive woman, you cannot be overbearing. And think about it, all the men who end up with women who are like their mothers, it's because they're trying to find somebody who's going to take care of them. You want a man who wants to be that energy to balance out your energy, not that you're taking care of and overbearing over.
right. Exactly. So
It's turning it off. That is really the biggest thing, is like, how do you turn it
how
off?
do you turn it
Yes,
off?
okay, you have this
Yes,
job. You have to be that masculine energy. I get it. You have a job that's super
exactly.
high paced, and I'm not gonna, and this is my biggest thing. I can't take you and immerse you into an ashram somewhere in India and just have everything perfect for you. You're not going to leave your family and your job. So what are you going to do? Well, you're going to start taking time for yourself, not because it's some fluffy self love, self care practice that you think is a good idea, but because your life depends on it. You need to take that bath. You need to use those oils. You need to breathe deeply, listen to the music you enjoy, do creative work. If you love painting, start painting. Whatever it is that connects you to that feminine energy, that laughter, that joy, that lightness that you've been missing, make that as much of a priority as washing your sheets each week, right?
Yeah.
Dance, move, connect with other women, be be willing to be vulnerable.
I think a lot of women have lost that essence.
Mm.
And it's
It's
just
there.
it's there. It's
Yeah.
totally there.
Yeah.
One of the ways that does it for me is through sensual dance. And so I have a really short playlist, but even moving through emotions, moving through grief or sadness, that's what I do to sort of
Yeah.
move the energy through. And it helps. Let me tell you. I mean,
Mm.
or before a date, if
Yeah.
I come home or
Get
if
the
I've
energy
been doing
moving.
interviews all day, I put on my playlist and I'm doing a little dance. And let me tell you, that switches me and drops me right into my feminine space.
Yeah. Out of your heads. Don't follow the thoughts. Follow what feels good for your body when you're moving. Sway your hips. Feel your feet on the earth, on the ground. Like, take your shoes off. Get connected to the floor.
Mm,
All of those things. I mean, I what you're describing right now, it's really wild. When I was in high school, I this whatever, my heart was broken by a really silly boy, right? The guy next door.
hmm
And I think everybody in the entire town thought I was insane. Well, we were actually out at the cabin at the time, but I played music from my car out into the street. I put on my flowing blue night dress and I danced for hours. I just danced underneath the trees. And to anyone else, especially like however many years ago that would be like, oh my gosh, she's insane, she's wild. But here's the thing, that is what returned me back to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in tune with that, and I wasn't willing to compromise because it didn't look cool, it didn't look appropriate. And this is the thing, it's not going to look appropriate to some people. The way that you're dancing, Margaret, when you come home and you're just moving your body and you're being super intuitive, to maybe your dad would not agree with the way you're doing it. Maybe even you've got friends who are like, that's a little bit, it's not their business. It's your body. You need to start treating her like that beautiful, sensual being that she is.
Absolutely. I love this conversation.
I know. I just wish every single woman could understand this, because you talk to women and they're in their heads and they say, how can I get what I want? And even their goals aren't connected to their true essence. So the first step, and I always say it, the first step to self-love is self-discovery. Because until you know who you really are, until you dive back into her, you're not going to love yourself. You're always going to be loving this false version. So start with that self-discovery, that movement, that exploring of what feels good, what tastes good. What are you? Who are you? What do you want?
Yeah. And allowing yourself to receive. So important. I mean, it's just a known fact. Men are the givers, women are the receivers in an essence, right?
Mm.
So I think that a lot of women put off giving to themselves and, receiving a massage. So I think that don't stop putting off those massages or those pedicures and spend an hour, getting some luxury done once a week. Like pick a day of the week, like a Friday, that you can do that.
A date with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that when someone told me this the very first time, or the first time I would have ever read, take time for yourself, it sounds so frivolous and it sounds like, oh, well, that's, it's egotistical to think that you should get that. And I'm telling you, Margaret, especially where I live, and I'm sure where you live, women have been conditioned to believe that they are nothing if they are not the providers, the ones who give to their family, right? Taking care of their family. They have no identity separate from that. And I want women to remember that you are your own unique being. Yes, you have kids. Yes, you have a career. Yes, you have a business. Yes, you have a husband. Yes, those things are part of your experience, but you are unique. And there are going to be things that nobody knows about you but yourself, right? Those secret dreams, those secret desires. And it's your job to nurture them and take care of yourself and give yourself that. Not anybody else's. They're not going to know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So true. So is there anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with? Anything that we didn't talk about that you...
Well, I love how you brought up that idea of receiving, because to me, the very first part of this, and the best way to tell if you are actually being like open to receiving, is to just notice your breath. So what I want everyone to do right now, I know it's a little bit wild, but I just want you to place a hand on your chest and one hand on your belly, wherever you're sitting or walking, it's fine. All right. And I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to feel, as you take a nice breath in, just normal, which hand moves. All right. So when I first did this, my teacher, beautiful Joy Morrell, when she taught this to me, when I was doing this, I would hold my belly in because I believed it made me look skinnier. And she said, breathe now into your belly. Let the skin of your belly relax and fill up like a balloon, and keep your top hand still. So instead of breathing shallow into your chest, breathe deeply into your belly. Close your eyes, take a nice big breath in and out. That's going to feel different, and it takes practice. But essentially, most people today, we walk around breathing shallow into our chest. Our chest lifts up and down quickly, and we're in stress mode. And Margaret knows all about this. When we need to run from a tiger or get the deal, we breathe into the chest. But when we are willing to breathe fully into our belly, our body drops into a relaxed state. So it only takes a few breaths, but if you can lay down in bed at night and breathe into your belly fully, but not only breathe in completely, breathe out completely, you're going to create the space to take a deeper breath and then a deeper breath and long, slow inhales, calming your mind, but also reminding you that you are worthy of receiving. And if it just starts with a breath, that one single breath that you breathe, and it's complete and it's full and it's nourishing, let that be the start of you receiving in all the areas of your life.
Mm. One of the good things about breathing from the belly, actually, is it decreases blood pressure.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to upgrade this, Margaret, this is one of the things I do in the evening on the nights that I feel really overwhelmed. I will swing myself around and stick my legs up the wall, laying on my bed. So bum where the pillow would be and my legs up the wall. And you've probably seen it before in yoga.
Yes.
But this is this is a magical yoga pose because all that blood can flow down towards your hips, towards your heart, towards your head. And then your heart, even more so, can relax. It can let go of the need to keep pushing and pushing. It's also symbolic. I love it. But instead of pushing, it can just receive the blood flow, and your mind will quiet, your breath will slow down, and you'll start to slow. And that is a really great way to calm your mind and rest fully.
I'm going to try that tonight. I really don't do legs up the wall.
Well, and for some people, straight up the wall, it's too intense. You can put your legs up onto pillows. You can lay on the ground and put your legs up onto a chair with your knees bent. They don't have to be a complete L shape. Right. But if you just elevate your hips above your heart, it's just that gravity starts to draw down. And I always think of earth energy. In that position, you are giving the earth permission to hold you and draw that blood down and allow your body to really rest. When you're standing, you are in charge. You are using your own body's strength to move you. But when you are willing to lay down and receive like that, both the breath and that support of the earth, that is super nourishing for the soul.
I'm definitely going to try that tonight.
Just a few minutes. It doesn't take long.
Yeah.
And some people will fall asleep. Some people, if your feet start getting numb, you can come down at any time. But just lift those feet up, or more importantly, the hips up, and it's going to help everything draw down.
Okay. That sounds great. All right, Amber, thank you so much. This was such fun interview. I love connecting with you, and we have so many things in common, actually.
I know. I love it. You're destined to speak, my friend.
Yes. So I am so glad that we are on the same path, and I hope that women can. How do they reach you? How do they find you?
Ooh. Well, you guys, I would love for you to come over and chat with me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. Just search for @Amber Chalus. But more importantly, if you come to iTunes, which is where you probably are right now, and search for The Liberated Woman, that's where my podcast is hosted, and amberchalus.com. So you can listen to me each week. I have an episode comes out on Fridays, and it's all about freedom in women. You know, to me, freedom is the root of it all. And when you have that freedom within yourself, then you can actually move mountains.
Amen, sister.
Thank you so much, Margaret. This has been so beautiful and so soul nourishing. Usually the conversations are just, standard. And for you, I think you're an exceptional interviewer. And I know that your audience appreciates every single moment that you put into this.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. And to learn more about Amber and for all the show notes, you can go to margaretromero.com/episode 5. And to continue the conversation, join us at the private Facebook group at margaretromero.com/Facebook. See you next week.